Hey toy fans, I'm D21Beast and welcome back to my figure review series here on my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at Marvel Legends Series VIII Storm. Storm was released in 2005, right around the height of the popularity for Toy Biz's Marvel Legends figures. They had started pumping them out a lot at this point here. I mean, they'd started with 4 in the series, they'd gone to 5, they'd gone to 6. I think up to this point they were like 7 in the wave. And they were really just cranking these things out. Excellent detail, excellent articulation. I mean, they were really just, they'd found their stride at this point. So let's go ahead and take a look at this Storm figure. This Storm, as far as articulation goes, does have a full 360-degree swivel here at the head. She does have a full 360-degree swivel here at the ball joint on her shoulder. There's also a bicep swivel right here that'll spin 360 degrees. And you'll notice you kind of have to work with the cape a little bit on this figure. She also has a double-jointed elbow. And she doesn't really have any wrist articulation that pivots up and down or at the wrist. She's got the forearm swivel here, so you can kind of make her hand do some motions there. But no actual wrist articulation per se, and that's probably because of the cape that she has on herself here. Now she does have an ab crunch, which is nice. She bends forward about that far. She bends back a lot farther. And she's got a 360-degree swivel here at the waist. Now, Toy Biz was kind of experimenting with the female figures here at this point, and it seems like every time we got one, their articulation changed. Here, Storm has not a ball joint, I believe it's called a wide joint, but it's kind of a hinge there, right inside of her hip, that allows you to move the figure's leg in towards her and away from her, and then you can even twist it at that hip and bring it down. She's got an upper thigh swivel here at the cut of her boot. She's got a double jointed knee. She also has a shin swivel here, and she has a standard hinge joint on her ankle there. It doesn't actually rotate or have that ankle pivot that's really popular now with the Marvel Legends, just that front and back motion there. And she does have high heels on, so she is a bit hard to stand at times. That's why I had her leaning against her accessory there at the beginning of the review. And the articulation on the right side of her body is identical with the articulation on the left side of her body. She just has different hand positions here. This hand's outward a little bit. This hand's almost kind of pointing or summoning weather. So this Storm's a great figure. Taking a look at her here, there's something interesting to note about her costume. In all the X-Men comics that I've read, and I've read a lot of them, I've never actually seen this Storm costume in any comic book. Now, I've seen derivations of this Storm costume, but I don't think I've ever seen a comic where she's wearing this black jumpsuit with the red X's on the shoulders. Now, in the late 80s, she did have a very similar costume to this. She had a costume that was kind of a black jumpsuit with like a lightning bolt design going down the front of it, and that was even made in action figure form by Toy Biz in the late 80s. But the costume she's wearing here is very much reminiscent of the costume that she wore on the 90s X-Men cartoon or during the Jim Lee era of X-Men after they had that relaunch with 1 in the 90s. In fact, let me go ahead and bring in here a later release of this same Storm figure, and you'll see here that this Storm does actually have a white costume. She's got the X's here on her shoulders, which is much more accurate to what you remember from the cartoon or the early 90s. But this Storm costume, I'm not convinced that the way it is sculpted here ever actually existed in any comic book. Now, if I'm wrong, please send me a screenshot and let me know. I'm very interested to know if we ever actually saw this costume. The other thing I'd like to mention about this Storm is that she does have a nice pliable rubbery cape. She doesn't have a stiff cape that limits her articulation any, and it's a cape that will work itself into many different poses that you want to do with the figure. So it was a nice touch on Toy Biz's part there to give us that sort of cape. I want to take a look at the first accessory here that Marvel Legends Storm comes with. Toy Biz at this point had been including display stands with a lot of the Marvel Legends that were on the market, and each time seemed like a challenge to be more unique and more specific to that character. This was a perfect idea for a Storm figure. Here we have a tornado coming off of a storm cloud, and there's even lightning bolts coming out of the base there. Now this stand is a bit noisy, but it does rotate a full 360 degrees. It's also wall mountable if you choose to do that. This stand also has 4 pegs inside of the twister here, so Storm, who's got holes in the bottom of her feet there, those are showing up on camera, she can actually be positioned in this twister for some pretty dynamic poses, which is great that they chose to include that. The other item that this Storm came packed with when she was new in box was issue number 96 of X-Men from 1975. This is a great book that takes place just a couple issues after Giant Size number 1 and is still dealing with the fallout of the death of Thunderbird. And while that's certainly significant to the X-Men, I believe the reason that this book was included was because of its significance to Storm. Inside this book, we see for the first time Storm's claustrophobia. In fact, there's a quick flash here towards the end of the book where Storm remembers the time that she survived the bomb blast that killed her parents. And ever since that day, she's been deathly afraid of being in enclosed spaces. So it's really cool to get that first moment here, that character building moment for Storm, and a great inclusion to have with this figure. And for fun, here's Storm featured as part of the then current team from that very comic book. So that's my review of Marvel Legends Series VIII Storm from Toy Biz. If you like this video, guys, please feel free to rate, share, and subscribe. Hit me up on Twitter and let me know that you like what I'm doing. I'd love to interact with you guys and even see what collections you guys have out there. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.